So today we're chatting with Nick Persico from the sales team here at Close. He is our director of sales, and he's going to give us some cool insights about coaching, about sales leadership, and all kinds of other cool nuggets. So thanks for joining us, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
So just to kind of warm up here, how long have you been working in sales?
Professionally, we're coming up on a little over a decade. Software sales specifically, I think this is year 7 or 8.
So I'm guessing you had some sort of sales experience that wasn't professional then, if you're qualifying it like that.
I mean, yeah, you could technically go all the way back to high school where I was selling burned CDs and DVDs out of the bathroom. And that I had to sell that. I would put the list together of my inventory of what I had. It would distribute to people. I'm not going to say how I did that or whatever, but distribute out to people. They would hear about it and then they can pick up their orders in the bathroom at break period. But that was sort of the first thing. And then there was many other things after that. But let's say for the official record, about 12 years.
I like it. Cool. So how much of that time have you spent in like a sales leadership position?
It's probably been 60-40. So 60% individual contributor and 40% actually managing a team. But what works really well for me, and I try to work myself into convincing my boss or employer or whoever it is to be in a hybrid role where I'm doing a third individual contribution. So like I'm always selling all the time to keep me fresh and keep my ear to the ground. I think that's very important. A third operations, managing a project or a function within the business. And then a third management, because that's what you have to do. And that's the rules for the road as you progress through your career. And then also as the company scales, that's just what the company requires of you to do that. So I do my best to try to make it a third, a third, a third. And I think that keeps my sanity, but also keeps me continuously providing value in different ways to the company.
Nice. That makes sense. So in your time as a sales leader, what would you say, what's like the biggest mistake or one mistake that comes to your mind that you've made as a sales leader? And what did you learn from it?
One of the biggest mistakes that I made early on was trying to push people to sell the way that I do. Right. So trying to impose my personality, my style of doing things onto them, because I felt like if I'm having success with it, they just copy what I do, it should work. And that is totally wrong. It's the opposite. So learning the hard way, it's now a exercise that takes many months, even years, to develop something I call a salesperson's sales identity. And it takes the core teachings that you can pull from anywhere, from all the way from Stelly to all the books and all the type of sales methods that are out there. I think we beg, borrow, and steal from all different ones and put together a philosophy on different topics and subjects within the world of selling and sales. So you have that, but then also the other part of it is understanding what that person's personality is, where they're most comfortable, where they seem the most authentic, and also utilizing their personality traits as a strength, and then trying to figure out how to work the advantages of that personality into becoming a great salesperson. So I focus on this sales identity and helping them discover it and then unlock it and then accelerate their own growth on their own. And I didn't develop all this thinking and philosophy all of a sudden one day. It's failing multiple times with trying to get salespeople that were complete opposite personality of me to try and copy me. And I also failed myself trying to copy them. And I just kept going back to what was my core personality and way of doing things. That's been a big change, I would say, over the last 5-6 years that's really materialized into this core philosophy that I talk about a lot.
Yeah, I like that. So using this as a segue into this conversation about sales coaching. So how would you, as someone who's been coached and also having coached other people, how important would you say that coaching is for a sales team?
It is important in the right context. It is not something that can happen in a day, a week, or a month. It is an ongoing thing that has to be consistent over many weeks and many months and even years. And you have to course correct and help guide people, to the place. So when I approach coaching, I think of it in a series of phases over time. So when somebody, let's say, joins the Close sales team, it's very practical, hands-on, here's how to explain the product, here's actually, all the information you need to know to sell the product. We work on that, but then also really starting to understand their sales identity and working on that. So I'm just through seeing them first definitely fail at selling the product and doing the demo and doing all these things you need to do as an account executive at close, picking up on what their identity is, the calls that went really well for them because they were comfortable and they did something that was in their own personality, or the calls that were really bad, and looking at that and learning from that. So it's just very hands-on. And then over time, it becomes less hands-on and we do it in a separate sort of setting. And a lot of it is hindsight driven. So for instance, I'll work with somebody on a deal specifically and be heavily involved in working with them on the deal as a peer, as a person working on the deal with them. And then once the deal concludes, or at different milestones in the deal, we'll look back and say, well, look where we're at today versus where we started. What should we have done differently? Do you think we should have delivered something another way? What strategy or tactic should have used? And we work together on that. So I'm a very, I guess, for lack of a better phrasing, a peer-driven type of coach, and doing it through experiencing it with them. And very little of it is hypothetical or any type of classroom environment. I avoid that like the plague. So that's my personality. It's what I enjoy. And I think it also just creates the most progress over time because you're doing two things at once. You're coaching, but you're also doing the job at the same time. So it allows you to continue to keep moving and make progress, as well as driving results for yourself and for the company at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what if a sales manager hears this and says, okay, coaching, yeah, I know I should be doing it more. Consistency over time is important, like you said. But what if a sales manager comes to you and says, listen, I just don't have time to coach people on my team. I've got sales ops that I'm working on, different aspects of the job like you were talking about before. And they say, I just don't have time to individually coach different people on the team. What would you say to that?
Well, not having time to coach is a problem, and probably how you're being managed as whoever you report to, right? So if a sales manager came to me and said that, I would then start to ask, what's expected of you from the person that you report to, whether it's the CEO, the VP, or whoever it is, and then start listing out those things. And then I think very quickly, two responses will come from that. Either one, what is expected of you or what you think your expectations are misaligned from what their actual expectations are. You just don't know what it is. You filled in the gaps you assumed. So you're giving information, reporting KPIs, results to them, and not really getting much feedback or even knowing if that's actually what they want you to do and spend your time, doing. So there's just misalignment there, and you should get alignment ASAP. Then there's the other one where they have told you top down, these are your expectations, these are what you're supposed to do. And none of those things involve coaching. So then in that case, I believe you have to manage up the person that's managing you, just like you would expect your salespeople to do. You should go talk to that person or group and lay down the law and say, look, these are the expectations that we should have going forward. This is what you are going to get from me. This is what you're going to not get from me. And this is what we're going to spend our time doing because I think this is important and vital to it. And you have that very frank and blunt conversation. And it's either going to go really well or it's not going to go well at all. And you may have to go work on something else. But it's certainly better than living in misalignment or stress over doing something you don't agree with or don't feel bought into. So that's my opinion on it. But that's what I would, tell them, is that it's so critical and important that if the people that you report to don't feel that it is as such, then you have to sort that out first, or else you're never going to have time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you need to get buy-in from whoever's above you as well to make sure they understand the importance of coaching as well. So then talking about this idea of coaching, when you are coaching a junior rep, is there such a thing as someone who just comes into sales and from day one just nails it? Or do you think that's something that has to be coached and trained?
So I think there are a hell of a lot of people on this planet that are natural born salespeople, and they can become good salespeople with very little effort because of their personality and their demeanor, right? Good salespeople. But I don't think there's any such thing as a naturally great salesperson. You have to work at that. That is a continuous craft that you're in pursuit of excellence in. And then also it's evolving over time. So you have to always change and work with the times with that. If I look back at myself, I had some of those traits, but then there was a very clear ceiling that I was hitting because I was only good. And some examples of this in a practical form are, out of 10 people that I speak to, I would do extraordinarily well with 4 out of the 10 because their personalities would overlap with mine. We would see eye to eye. But then the 6 out of 10, I would do terrible with because I didn't meet them at their level, or I didn't communicate in the way that they want to be communicated to, and vice versa, because I had no skill being able to be aware of that and then adjust and change in real time on the call or in the meeting. So that's where the ceiling was. And then when I got out of my own head, and Stelly was a huge proponent of this, of getting me to a place to where I could unlock that and to where I can do really well at 8 out of 10, that's when really the wheels started to turn and success started to happen and started to move into the great category. And that's what I try to do. So when I'm interviewing somebody or talking to somebody or getting to know somebody that's interested in sales, I look for those core ingredients, because that's usually going to mean that they're going to become a good salesperson. And then the time that we spend together working together, that investment on both sides, is working on getting them from good to great. That's usually the trajectory that I follow.
I like that. And have you ever seen someone who just wasn't a natural born salesperson really become great through training, through discipline, through dedication to the job?
Yes. And they have to work, frankly, 10 times harder to get to that level, because they have to work through getting from bad to good, right? And then they have to go from good to great. And the best example I have of this is one of my mentors and one of my great friends who was not a natural born salesperson, English not his first language. So he had to do the triple overcome. Not naturally good at sales. English is not his first language and has an accent. So he has to deal with that and all of the biases that come with that. And then had to work through all of that. And he was another one that got me out of my own head and helped me break the ceiling above me of going from good to great, because he put me in my place. He says, "Are you lucky? You know what? I had to work, 20 times harder to get where you're at today. And you just walked in here 2 weeks ago and you're already at that place. And I'm pissed off about that. And to see you not do things that could get you to become great is offensive to me." That was sort of what he said in way more colorful language. And I still remember the conversation to this day. And it was almost 10 years ago. That was really what had a big impact on me, and seeing it from the other side of, I've got some of these key gifts and ingredients, don't waste it, because here's a guy that had none of this and had to work up. So I definitely think it could be done. And I have seen plenty of examples where it's done. And I'm always very impressed by those folks that are able to do that, but it's difficult, but it is possible.
So it's like someone who's naturally maybe more gifted at sales, they just jump ahead in the journey towards becoming a great salesperson, but it doesn't make them great right off the bat.
Yeah. And look, there's even a less percent that go from good to great. I mean, think of all the people that were naturally good at sales, but didn't make that step to great. I think there's a whole big contingent of those, and they just don't go through to the next level, because unfortunately, you can coast, you can, to use a baseball metaphor, you can bat the league average and still do okay. So it's on you to be more aspirational, more hungry to get to where you're leading the league.
And that's true for whether you're naturally gifted in sales or not. Either way, you have to be eager to learn and ready to adjust and adapt. So bringing it closer to home, to our own sales team here at Close, a lot of times people are surprised that the sales team at Close is as small as it is, especially with the volume that they're handling. So I was curious, what are your thoughts on building and managing a small but effective team versus having a large team with that kind of sink or swim approach to training and coaching?
Yeah, so this philosophy that we have about a small team is not something that we believe every company should do. We do it in response to the economics of our business, the product we sell, the price point we sell at, the audience that we sell to, as well as the marketing and sales funnel that we've built. That's really why we have a small sales team. And then we continue to double down on it because it continues to work. So that also helps too. So let me break that down a little bit. So for us here at Close, we have a percentage of our business that is self-service. We have a plan starting at $25 a month. If you think about Netflix and other businesses like this, subscription-based businesses, when you go to do a Netflix subscription, you don't talk to a salesperson, you just upgrade and then you leave. We have the similar type of thing. So inserting humans into that process just makes no economic sense, right? So that's part of it. And then for the percentage of deals that are maybe a bit larger, then we assign a salesperson to work through that. But there's some percentage of that that's self-service because they have access to the product through our 14-day free trial. And we also give them all the documentation that they need. We have a ton of resources to help them in that journey. And then also the pricing is transparent. So somebody can go into the app, they know how much they're going to pay. So we make it very easy to become a customer. So that's why a lot of that effort that a lot of sales teams do with humans, we've been able and been lucky to where we've just used technology to do that. And the salespeople spend their time on the very difficult things. Migration, making sure this is a good fit. How does this fit into the greater sales and marketing stack? What is their sales process? So really asking the hard questions on figuring out how we're going to go from not very productive sales team or a sales team looking for software to help them accelerate and grow. How do we get from A to Z? That's what our sales team really works on. So it's almost consultative in that sense. And that's the attributes, what cause us to say that a small team of people that are very specialized and very skilled at their craft and very experienced at their craft, that's a better person to put in front of our market or our leads than maybe another business or another company where it's a high volume of leads. It's a more expensive product. There's many months of due diligence to go through. Maybe the competition landscape is different. So it makes sense to add a sales development rep, an account executive, a sales engineer. It may make sense to add all these things into it because that's what the buyers expect. In our world, the buyers don't expect that. They're going to keep chugging along and doing their thing. And when they need help, they want to be helped. And they hope and expect that that person or group of people is going to be competent and help them very quickly. And that's what we try to provide to them. So it's really a market response as opposed to some driven philosophy on this is how it should be done. And it's very black and white. That's not the case. We're just doing what we think works best for our environment, our ecosystem, and our customer acquisition.
That makes sense. Do you think that's a model or a way of building the sales team that makes sense for a lot of SaaS companies, or is it just really is dependent on the product itself? The market.
Yeah. So the percentages are changing. So I would say 3-4 years ago, we were the exception to the rule. Now it's going the other way. Right. And I don't know, what the percentage is going to be 5 years from now, but it's definitely accelerating. I think you're going to see more teams built like us as more buyers come into the market expecting to buy the way that our current buyers buy today, because that's also growing. Right. The traditional SaaS purchase is changing rapidly, because the buyers are changing rapidly in their expectations of what they do. So I think the sales teams are going to adapt to that, and they're just going to have smaller teams with a person that has more roles and responsibility in that deal. It's not specialized out by function within the sales process. We have full stack salespeople here at Close, and I think you'll see more and more of that as we go through time. And then also the technology is getting better. 10 years ago, you didn't have products like Close to help you reach out to the number of leads and stay up to date with the number of leads that you could before. So that's also allowing a salesperson to work on more deals per salesperson than you used to. So that helps too. So all the trends are heading in a direction. All the wind is at our back to where I think this model is going to be here to stay and a more of the normal as opposed to the exception that it was even 3-4 years ago.
That makes sense. So then what's your favorite sales performance indicator or metric when you're looking to assess the performance of your team or the individuals? What do you look for specifically when it comes to metrics?
So I hate saying it depends. I hate giving answers that way, but so I'll back out of that in a second and give you something more specific. But it always changes based off of the stage of the company that you're in terms of, are you looking week over week or month over month or quarter over quarter? Close, we've been lucky to scale to a place where we live quarter to quarter. But in previous companies and previous startups that I work on, we were living day to day, right? So you got to be aware of that. There's also metrics that are more important to the business than others at different points, whether you're fundraising or there's some cash or capital crunch that you're trying to solve, or God knows, there's tons of other scenarios. So the KPIs always change. But from a more higher level standpoint of what I look for when I look at numbers, when it comes to salespeople performance, is consistency, week over week and month over month, and then a compounding effect over that period of time, right? So is the chart basically going steadily up and to the right? What I don't like is jagged up and downs, because that is very hard to create prediction models out of. And it's hard to have confidence in some future performance that you're trying to set goals against and work towards. So I try to avoid this as much as I can. And I'm more interested in this steady up and to the right and consistent. So if you're thinking about activity metrics, about meetings booked, deals qualified, opportunities created, I want that number to be the same week over week or month over month, but then also compounding and increasing over time. And then on revenue type of things, I want obviously the numbers to go up and compound, but I also want the deal quality to increase. Is the rate of which you discount for a deal that you close, is that going in the right direction? Out of the 10 opportunities you create, are you closing 6 out of 10 of them, as opposed to 2 months ago where you were only closing 4 out of 10 of them? So is your percentage rates increasing and getting better? And that's also a measure of effectiveness and efficiency. That's something we look at a ton here because we have limited resources purposely. So I want to make sure that any time that our sales team is spending on X, it's the most efficient, use of our time. So that's what I look at in looking at a number or a chart that tells me that things are trending well or trending poorly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Whatever the metric is that people are tracking, consistency is key, basically. Yeah, cool. So we'll wrap it up here then.